guys, welcome back to the Hybrid Athlete channel. I'm Dr. Paul Rimmer, and on today's question of the week, I'm going to answer a really common question amongst all athletes, but particularly with endurance athletes, which is, why do I keep getting injured? Why do I keep picking up these niggly little injuries? Not always the same injury, we seem to treat one injury, then something else comes along. So I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of three major components. Firstly is training load, so how much volume we're doing each week, and the first component of that really is how quickly are we increasing that training load? Is that on a weekly basis, and over the course of say several weeks on a training block, how much load are we accumulating without getting the appropriate recovery? Okay, so we've got this load recovery relationship. Now we've also got something else which is massively important for injury prevention, which a lot of endurance athletes don't do, which is strength training. I'm going to talk about strength training a little bit in this video, more so than the other two, but initially I just want to focus on like the load and the recovery component. So in terms of load, we have this like acute load, this short-term load. So that would be how much training that we're doing in a specific week, and not just the volume of training, the intensity of that training, and are we shifting that training into different environments, different terrains, different environments, which might be causing more fatigue than our body's used to. And then obviously then we have this chronic effect of training, which is, are we building that mileage too much, or that distance, or that duration, or that intensity, that volume too quickly over several weeks time, a period of several weeks. So the problem with that means that if we get fatigued, we get tired. If we build that volume that quickly, we tend to get fatigued, we tend to get tired. And that's where really we start to pick up these little injuries. And if we're just really dogmatic and rigid with our training program and we're not recovering properly, then that can cause problems. So in terms of the recovery component, we have our short-term recovery as well. So we've got short-term recovery and long-term recovery. Short-term recovery is, are we doing everything we can in terms of our sleep? Are we doing everything we can in terms of our nutrition? Are we doing everything we can in terms of making sure we're adequately hydrated and fueled during performance? And maybe a few other things as well. Are we mobile enough? We're doing the right amount of stretching? Are we warm enough? Are we preparing our bodies as effectively as possible for those sessions in the short term? But also, what are we doing in the long term? Are we just really focused on nutrition every now and again, or are we accumulating sleep debt over time? Do we think that we can just keep getting away with ramping up our training volume with the same old nutrition strategies, or are we adjusting our nutrition and recovery strategies over longer periods of time to adjust to those changes in workload? So this idea of kind of like fueling for the work done, recovering for the work done. If you're doing a gentle training block and you've got a lot of lifestyle stress, maybe you're not getting as much sleep, maybe your nutrition isn't on point, that's fine. But longer term, as we go through a training block, then we do really run this risk of kind of forgetting to really hone in and optimize our nutrition or our sleep or whatever it might be, to make sure that we are in a good place to recover from those increased training loads. So if we're going to get injuries that are training load related, it's because typically speaking, we get a mismatch between the load and recovery. Now, everybody's going to have a certain amount of training load, training volume that they can handle over a period of time. We can't just go out and run 100 miles every single day. I know that's an extreme example, but it kind of proves the point. So we have to be careful with how we accumulate load. We also have to be careful of how we monitor that and figure out for ourselves as individuals how much load that we can handle. But a major component for this that I think some endurance athletes go through phases of doing, but not necessarily doing all of the time or keeping it consistently in their training, is developing strength. Now, we can develop strength in two ways. One is through actual strength training, and strength training gives us other benefits in terms of performance, running economy, running efficiency, or stability, making us more robust to handle the demands of training. But also we also have another component to strength as well, and I want to think about strength in two ways. So I want to think about strength as one is having the capacity to resist external loads. So if we land funny, or we have an accident or something in our training, that we can handle that kind of acute stress. But I also want to think of strength in terms of building like that endurance strength, so that we can handle those higher training volumes. So the way I want to try and think about strength is this, is like the volume of training that you're doing, so muscular endurance work, getting out, building mileage week on week on week, kind of, if we imagine this is like a balloon, that expands the size of the balloon that we have until it bursts, okay? So we have this kind of training balloon that we don't want to pop. So increasing our load gives us that kind of, that conditioned strength, the conditioning towards the activity by, like I said, slowly progressing training load and training volume over time at the appropriate intensity. So that gives us the volume of the balloon. But our strength training, our resistance training in the gym really increases the thickness of that balloon, okay? So we can't just do loads of strength training and then expect to be able to handle massive amounts of training volume, massive amounts of training load and not get injured. But we also can't just do loads and loads of training volume, loads and loads of training load and then neglect strength training, which means that, yeah, we've got a lot of volume and that balloon might expand, but eventually something really small goes wrong or acute goes wrong, we land funny, something awkward happens, we haven't developed those ligaments and tendons and that muscular control under higher loads than maybe we're used to in training, which then means that, yeah, we've got all that capacity within the balloon, but a slight little deviation away from that and pop, the balloon bursts. So that's a nice, hopefully useful, maybe not nice, but hopefully useful metaphor as to why it's really important to do some form of strength training. It doesn't need to be hammering yourself in the gym, doesn't need to be being a bodybuilder, but doing some form of resistance exercise 1 or 2 days a week can have a massive impact in terms of increasing that envelope of function, or that balloon of function, giving us that kind of toughness and resilience to the outside of that balloon, so that we're not then wasting all our training building loads of volume, but all of a sudden we're just very fragile to any changes. And as well, having that strength training will allow, when you're building that volume on a week-to-week basis, when we're increasing that volume, it will allow us to transfer or transition between those different training weeks a little bit more smoothly, with a lot lower risk of injury. Anyway, guys, hopefully that's been helpful. If you've enjoyed that video, you want to see more of my other content, please give this video a like and subscribe, and I'll be back with you guys very soon. Peace.